Welcome guys, it's Guy. I hope you're doing well and welcome back to the channel. This week's productivity video is for all of the perfectionists out there, which includes yours truly. There's this idea out there that if you're not giving it your very best on everything that you do, then you're not doing something right. And I find that whenever we see somebody who achieves things with practically no effort, where they just kind of seem to float by, we tend to look down on them. We come up with all kinds of explanations as to why this person is lucky or why they must have some sort of advantage that we don't, and why they ultimately don't deserve their success because clearly they didn't work hard enough on it. And something about that thought has always sat a little bit wrong with me. Of course, I am guilty of thinking that myself, but I don't particularly like that part of me. I think this attitude of work hard and give it your best at all times is very widespread, especially in the US, but I think it's a thing around the globe. And intuitively, it makes sense, right? If you're gonna work on a task, you might as well do the best job that you can. Otherwise, why spend time on it in the first place? But here's the problem. When you look closely, you realize how most systems around us don't really seem to be wired in a way that makes this the optimal strategy. And you realize that when you look around and see that a lot of people seem to be doing really well without putting that much effort in it. At least you think, wow, I'm doing so much more, and yet all these people are either doing just as well as me or even better than me. And so when I thought about this a little bit more, I came across this incredible article that actually puts a concrete model on this very concept that I'm talking about here, and it really helped me to understand where my own perfectionism might be holding me back and making me less effective than I would like to be. The article is by Nate Suarez. I'm linking to it down below, and in this article he explains how this dichotomy is effectively one between the triers and the slackers. If you're watching this video, you are probably a self-proclaimed perfectionist, which puts you in the category of the triers. I fall into that category as well, and as triers, we generally don't want to have anything to do with the slackers. We think we're better than them. Our work ethic and the effort we put into our work is what makes us stand out. That's why we're going to be successful in life, and they will not. At least that's what we tell ourselves. So instead of letting go of a task at hand, even though there's that small voice inside our heads that says, this is good enough, you can move on, you can get the next thing done, or you can even call it a night and spend some time with friends and family or with your partner. Instead of doing that, we keep trying. We keep on trying to make it just that little bit better, and we end up spending another 2, 3, 4 hours or even a whole day on that one task at hand. And obviously being a trier or a perfectionist isn't all bad. There's plenty of great qualities that come with having that particular trait in your personality, but more often than not, it is quite difficult to be as effective as we'd like to be as perfectionists. So how can we become more effective? How can we get rid of those negative parts of our perfectionism without becoming a slacker? To find an answer to that question, we first have to realize that both the triers and the slackers are equally as confused. And therefore, they are both wrong when it comes to being effective. Let's look at how both of those groups will generally react to a task being in front of them. It doesn't matter if it's from a boss or a professor or if you took on that task yourself. What matters is that there is something to be done, and that quality is an important factor in the output. And so the slacker will generally deal with this problem of quality by saying that they don't care about quality. Maybe they're worried that they're not going to do as good a job on the task, so instead of trying harder, they say that they don't care about the task, that the system is unfair, that the class they're taking is stupid anyway, that it's not worth it. In short, they claim that aiming for higher quality is not the goal. And in turn, they turn something in that's either poor or fails completely. On the other hand, if you're a trier, you tend to deal with the problem at hand by winning through quality. Your worldview will generally be predicated on the fact that more quality is always better, and more effort equals more quality. So if we look at this on a line, you're always going to want to move rightwards on the quality line. More effort, more quality. But here's the key. Both groups are wrong. And that might seem weird to you, but hear me out. I know you're a trier. I know this is not instantly going to make sense, but hear me out on this one. As a perfectionist, you're going to be inclined to think that more effort is always going to be the goal. But being effective only matters in relation to what you are actually trying to achieve. Remember what you're fighting for. And I think that applies to a lot of different tasks. I first realized that pattern in college, where I would work really hard for an exam, I'd really prep well, I would get an A, I'd be super proud, and then I realized that the person sitting next to me who was texting the entire time in class also got an A. And of course in college, you then quickly realize that success in most classes doesn't really depend as much on the amount of effort you put in, but more so on how smartly you prepare for the exam, how well you can anticipate what questions are going to come up, and knowing what to study for and what to ignore. If your goal in a college class is to get an A on an exam, then the real winner in the classroom is not the person who put in the most amount of effort and got the A. The real winner is the person who got the A with minimal effort. And of course, your goal might not always be to get an A. Sometimes you're going to want to shoot for a B, or sometimes you simply want to write an essay that you're really proud of. But the point is, no matter what your goal is, pick out the exact target on that quality line and then try to hit that target with the least amount of effort required. Now, how do you do that? The first step is to let go of this trier-slacker dichotomy. Why? Because both sides criticize the other group and both sides are right. The slackers laugh at the triers because the triers fail to realize that quality for the sake of quality isn't an actual goal. Triers tend to treat this quality line as the end-all, be-all and just try to move as far rightwards on that quality line as possible. And in the process, they usually end up wasting effort. And then meanwhile, the triers scoff at the slackers because the slackers decided to go to college and now they claim that they don't want to learn and they're clearly just wasting their time and everybody else's time. And in reality, both groups are right to criticize the other group because both groups are in some way or form wasting time. So now you're saying, Guy, are you really telling us that trying hard is a bad thing? And no, of course it's not. The key is that trying hard is only useful in relation to an actual target that you know you want to hit. Because the problem is, if you don't have that target as a perfectionist, you're always going to feel bad. You're always going to think that there was something more you could have done. And now you're motivated primarily by guilt and shame as opposed to a real desire to hit a specific point on that quality line, a specific output target that you know you're either going to be proud of or that you know is the actual thing that you need to advance in the task, in your job, as an entrepreneur, in college, whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. And once you have a concrete target on that line, it becomes a completely different ballgame because you can genuinely trust that the amount of effort you're going to spend to hit that target line is optimal, or at the very least should be optimal, not too little, not too much. And now you can start applying your perfectionist brain towards finding that optimal amount of effort to hit that target and not just use your perfectionism to move further right on that quality line without having an actual target to hit. There is one important exception to this rule, and that is when the quality target is so high that you know for a fact you're not going to be able to hit it. This applies especially to creative ventures. So if you're writing or if you're acting or if you're making films like me, making a good film is so incredibly difficult that given where I'm at, I know I don't yet have the capacity to make a film as good as I want it to be. So in that case, because my quality target is above my actual resources, I know the best course of action is always to put in maximum effort and give it all I have. And even there is a way to protect yourself from the negative elements of perfectionism, and that is by learning to identify when you've reached that maximum effort. So now instead of wearing myself down to say, this is not good enough, you need to do better, you need to do better, I can use that voice in my head and use it for fuel and inspiration while patting myself on the back and saying, I know I've reached that maximum effort. Given my resources and capabilities at the moment, I cannot do more than that, but I know I'm going to be able to do more than that in the future. And that's what keeps me going. So remember, the goal here is not just to shoot for the minimum acceptable outcome. Your goal can be set really high. It doesn't have to be a C in that college class. That part is entirely up to you. And the last important note, of course, is to incorporate some margin of errors because we all make mistakes. And when you're being strategic and you're shooting for that C in class because you know that's all you're going to need to get the A in the final grade, remember that sometimes even the most optimally planned strategy to hit that specific target can be off and you might end up scoring lower than you think. So give yourself that margin of error wherever you want to hit the quality line and make sure that over time you become better at optimally planning out what amount of effort you need to hit that target perfectly. I hope this was helpful. If it was, lightly tap that like button, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and send this to a friend if you're so inclined. It really helps me out, helps out the YouTube algorithm, and just generally everybody's gonna be happier. So on that note, I hope you have a wonderful week and I'll see you real soon. Cheers.